am going to say Bev Scott, founder of Aya. This is 2025, and we're kicking off, and I am kicking off with the really big career awareness segment of the programming. And so I'm going to turn it over now to our program manager for 2025, and he has been with us since 2020. And that is Mr. Isaiah Shahan, and he is turning it to you, and he's coming to us from Chicago, and I'm coming to you from Mobile, Alabama. Okay, and we'll tell you where other people are coming from too. Okay, Isaiah, if you take it away.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for joining the very first career awareness session of the 2025 IS Sustainable Mobility and Career Awareness Innovation Challenge. We know it's a long name, but we check off all the boxes. Like Dr. Scott said, my name is Isaiah. I've been with IA for going to be 5 years now later this year. I started out as an intern, not knowing anything about infrastructure, not even knowing this entire industry existed. I originally just joined IA because I was just trying to make a quick buck and have an internship to my name. But by the end of summer of 2020, I ended up caring way more about infrastructure than I ever thought I would have. And here I am now, the program manager of the Innovation Challenge. Um, today's our actually no, I'll let you introduce everything, Dr. Scott. But I'm very happy to be here. Normally I would have my camera on, but since I'm running some tech stuff, I just gotta make sure my internet connection is stable. So for that reason, my camera is off. But you guys will be seeing me in the upcoming career awareness webinars that happen every single Thursday. So I'm just saying, if you guys aren't doing it Thursdays at noon, just keep that block off for us, and we'll get you guys right. We'll get your guys' youth right. And, at the end of the day, we're just trying to get the youth prepared as possible for not only their upcoming Innovation Challenge project later this year, but also the future. You know what I mean? The next generation needs us and them. So I'm very privileged to be a part of this group that does everything in its power to provide the youth what they need to be great. So that's my side of the story, Dr. Scott.
Oh, then you're sticking to it. I know.
Right.
Okay, let's run through it. If you take me through the slides, and then we'll turn it over to Jack and them. I want to, and you don't see Karina's face, okay, but we're very honored to have the support again from our platinum sponsor, American Public Transportation Association, and representing all of the public, private, the community-based organizations on the public transportation side, and it's just really a privilege to have them with us and help to make this program possible. So thank you so much. This is our 2025 local host lineup. Okay, so we have 12 local hosts, and you'll see we have an array. We're all over the country, so we're four time zones, and actually we've spoken with Hawaii. So I guess when we get to the fifth time zone, it's gonna really stretch it. But we record every single thing, okay? And that's what we always say to speakers, because there's just no way everybody's going to be on this. Just not going to happen, okay? And so we are very big into the recordings, and it's really and just very thrilled to have the range that we have here. We have large systems, small systems. We have community-based organizations. Wherever we have community-based organizations that are identified as the lead, be assured that there is a backup with them of public and private partners who are in the industry and who know the industry. So it's really and we're delighted to say that we have both the United States, and then we have the largest operator in Canada with the TTC. So it's quite an array here. Okay, keep going. Okay. Your learning objectives at the end of this webinar are going to be and this is for the young people that will be really listening in, is to explain a little bit about just give you an overview of the national transport or transportation sector, really highlighting workforce challenges and opportunities. When Jack and them start talking, Jack's going to give you kind of a big view of the overall sector, but then we always hone in with an IA programming on public transportation. And are we a bit biased? Yes, we are. Okay, and you'll hear
Mhm.
us talking about transportation and mobility because of all the subsectors that are within the family of transportation. The one that very directly hits people in communities is is public transportation. Okay. And so that's another reason why we do our very specific drill in the public transportation subsector. We hope that you'll have a better understanding of the connection between transportation and outcomes. Okay, that's what it's all about. I mean, yes, I used to laugh and tell people I love all the big things that move. Okay, and that is critical. And we have to be able to move them. We have to be able to build them. We have to be able to design them. But at the end of the day, and this is where mobility kicks in. Okay, that yes, we are physical structures, we're services, but it's really the outcomes those broader outcomes that we help to support within communities and society in terms of housing and jobs and health and all that. So that's where you start getting this bigger mobility picture, which is really much more about outcomes. And that's very exciting. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but that also broadens the array of careers that are entry points, lateral points that you can be thinking about in terms of the transportation mobility sectors and how you can plug and play in that in terms of how you plan and think about your career. And then the other thing we say we go deeper because we talk about it and we expose you to it, but then we also, between what we do at the national level and what's taking place in your local and regional areas, we try to make sure that we connect you with individuals, with organizations, mentors, and resources that you can build your own professional and personal networks. Okay. And so, yes, we're going to make sure that you understand that there is an American Public Transportation Association and who they are, and that they also have youth programming, that there are memberships that they have, that there are a scholarship and grant opportunities that they have. And the same thing that we'd say about the Conference of Minority Transportation Officials or Latinos in Transit or the Women's Transportation Seminar, what you can find with the AFL-CIO, what you can find with American Society of Civil Engineers, and that's a whole nother session. But we try to make sure that when you finish this, that we will have at least provided you with some resources where you will be able to know how to fish for yourself. Okay. And these are opportunities that are nobody's hiding them, but they're insider. And so if you're not an individual if you're not in the sector or whatever, then, or people that your family or whatever, which you wouldn't necessarily expect them to be unless they work in the system, they're usually the kind of thing that you just wouldn't be that aware of. So that's another thing that we do, what we call industry resources. Okay, take me to the next one. And so when we get to the Q&A, and it's going to give me a great pleasure to turn it over to Jack Clark and Rich Diaz in just a minute, but we're going to go through and then I'll do a little last part of this presentation, and then we're going to turn it over for just some question and answers. And if you have any questions that you have, then if you wait through the presentations, but if it's burning, just put it in the chat and we'll make sure and bring it in. Okay. But put it into the Zoom chat, or you can direct the message to Isaiah, and then we'll read the questions out loud and answer as many as time allows. And if we don't have enough time and there's something left, we'll make sure that we freeze the chat, and then we'll come back. And if you give us your information, we'll make sure that you get a response. And so today's presenters, and actually in the order where I'm at the back end, okay, gives me great pleasure to introduce Jack Clark. He has many hats, okay? He's the executive director of the International Transportation Learning Center, we call it the ITLC. Very unique. It is the only national labor management consortium around transportation I want to tell you North America, okay? And Jack, and ITLC, oh my goodness, it's 20 plus years old, okay? And so all of the ITLC deals with standards, it's management and labor, and really very, very focused in terms of workforce development, and has always had a particular focus on our frontline positions. And I want you to understand from day one that about 80% of the positions in public transportation transportation, and in many of the infrastructure sectors, but let's stick with public transportation, are what we classify as frontline essential positions. And Jack and Rich will go into that in greater detail in a minute. He is also the executive director in that capacity as the ITLC. The ITLC is also the first time nationally selected transit head of the Transit Workforce Center, that is Federal Transit Administration, U.S. Department of Transportation, which provides, once again, a national resources in terms of workforce development and people readiness, again, with a particular focus on our skilled workforce, that essential workforce that is the 80% of the not exclusively, but the 80% of the work that takes place in the industry. And Jack comes to all this from, I don't want to, I'm gonna be aging everybody up here, but he originally started life in, well, he started life when he started life, but anyway, he was like a department, like over like a labor department, if you will, office in the city of Boston, and has also been award winner with the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. I think one of the innovation award winners through his very storied career. Okay, and so that's a pleasure to have Jack. When Jack and Jack and Amalgamated Transit Union, which is the largest public transit union in North America. Okay. They always do the duo. Okay. Because ATU, I just tell people, just an absolute partner. We have been absolutely thrilled to have Amalgamated be supportive and a real participant in our program. Their current president, John Costa, and actually their prior presidents since we've been in existence have just really been right there with us all the way through. And I couldn't say thank enough. Okay. They've really focused quite a bit in workforce development. Rich, I think it was 1575 when I first met him. It was about 3 years ago in California, and he was maybe four. Oh, time flies. Oh my God. But it might have been before, might have been five. I started thinking about the pandemic but I remembered this like I knew the name. I said, oh my, because he's an international workforce development coordinator. And I said, I know that name. I know that name. And I knew that name when we were talking about the prep because I knew the face. Just a wonderful presentation. He had been at Golden Gate, okay, in San Francisco. One of the real innovative leaders in terms of workforce development and how do you wind up being able to really expand that pipeline and do some really, really innovative things, okay, in terms of criteria standards and all that kind of stuff like that. So we're delighted to have Rich here. He'll tell you, he's going to talk a lot about the worker voice and how important it is to wind up having workers really at the table. And we get this consistently from our young people when we talk with them. They say, look, we want to hear what your folks have to say in the big office, if you will, but we really want to hear directly from individuals who are in the business, who are on the front line, who are dealing with customers and community. Why do you do this? Why do you stay? What are the career opportunities that I can have if I stay in this career? There's a hand up. Is that for me?
Oh yeah, I think that's yours. Zoom has like that new thing
Oh,
where
I didn't see. I didn't put it on there, so I'll take it down. Okay, so I'll take it down as soon as I finish up. So anyway, so Rich is going to be taking that angle of it, and between their threads, as they're talking, we have two big areas. We have a critical conversations portion of the AYA programming. We do career awareness, we do the innovation challenge, and critical conversations. Every year, we pick an industry-wide topic of significance, and we specifically drill down to be able to get a young adult perspective on it. Those two areas, and they are related, is you're going to be hearing a little bit here, but more in May on the bus of the future. And that bus of the future is focused on safety, innovation, and the customer experience. And the two presenters, big presenters there, well, three, will be Toronto Transit Commission, AC Transit, And Jack is going to be giving a good perspective as well. He'll be joining that one with the Minetta Transportation Institute. But they're going to be giving that portion of it, which will combine those three elements, always leading with safety. Okay. And then the second portion will wind up being a national forum that we will do, which is to wind up getting the perspective of youth and young adults in terms of what in the devil can we do? We, a big we, in terms of it's been a dramatic increase over the past several years in terms of transit workforce assaults. And so those will be the two, and those are really the two areas that we are focusing on from an industry-wide perspective. So I just wanted to say that to kind of lay that flavor, and both of those big ones will be taking place for that perspective in May. So with that, now I want to turn it over to you, Jack, to take it away. Then we'll be followed by Rich. I'll end up a little bit, and then we'll take it to the floor. Okay. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Bev. You and I make this a very intergenerational presentation because we are covering youth and people who've been around the block a little bit. I'm delighted to be here with you. Bev actually was one of the founding movers of getting our organization started and has been a steady support for a long, long time. We've worked together very well for a long time. Glad to see Isaiah. Bev reminds me that he was there in the sort of baptism by fire the first time that Chicago had to do the youth program on an entirely virtual basis. And we did a lot of scrambling, and Isaiah was in the middle of making that happen. And as always, helping with the technology. And he has his own career pathway story there, which is great in terms of starting as an intern, and now he's running this. Karita and I just got together earlier this week. We work with Apter all the time, and we're continuing to try to coordinate there. And I've known Rich for a long time. He's going to have a lot of great things to say himself. And I'll say some great things about him too, because he's a very modest person and doesn't brag much, but he's done brilliant work, both in his local at Golden Gate, and now doing work for the international. Again, this is a real career ladder, career pathway story. As Rich will tell you, he used to be a bus operator, became a metro coordinator locally, ended up being the director of the mentoring program, and is now helping people all over the country and all over North America figure out how to duplicate that program. So let's see. I'm hoping I can make this slideshow work. Yep. So we're doing a brief introduction to transit. You've seen some of this already. Bev has already covered some of this. With the National Transportation Learning Center, we've been around 20 plus years. And since 2021, we've operated the Transit Workforce Center, which is the first time FDA has funded an entity to provide technical assistance on frontline worker issues. There are a lot of other technical assistance centers doing a lot of very good things, but this is the first time that it's been specifically focused on frontline workforce. Transportation includes a lot of things: airlines, highway construction maintenance, maritime, railroads, trucking, pipelines sometimes get included in there. There are a lot of different people and a lot of different skills working there. As Bev indicated, the focus today and the focus generally here is on transit, public transportation, and airlines also do some of this, and railroads do some of it. But a lot of what the other sectors do is around freight, around moving things. The transit, public transportation sector is really about people and about connecting communities and doing things that the other sectors don't do. We just covered this. Bus lines, subways, paratransit are all examples of how public transportation works. You're probably familiar with everybody on here, I think, is familiar with buses, familiar with getting on light rail or a subway line. Paratransit is usually something that is reserved for people with disabilities or the elderly, and it's changing how that works, but it traditionally has been something where you call ahead and schedule the next day for service, and somebody comes and picks you up, and it's for people who would otherwise have difficulty connecting to public transportation. We'll get into questions on any of this later. So APTA keeps a fact book, and they, according to their records, in 2023, which is the most recent year for which data would be complete, there were 7.11 billion public transportation rides. That's in 2023. At that point, we were still coming out of the pandemic, so that was a little bit lower than historically what people have been doing. It's also interesting. We'll get into some of this in more detail. The people generally think of transit as, you get on, you're commuting to work, you're getting to school or whatnot, but it's also people shopping and recreational opportunities. Post-pandemic, one of the things that's become very clear if you look closely at the data is that, particularly with remote work and everything else, commuter trips were down, and were down fairly dramatically. But if you take a look, the overall transit rides were not down as much as you'd expect, because people were getting on transit to go downtown in the evening to go to see a movie, or to go to a restaurant, or to visit friends, or do whatever. Weekends were transit rides picked up. So there's been a lot of reorientation and thinking about how you redesign the service to meet different needs, and that's ongoing. Public transportation employs about 430,000 people, and again, APTA has been very, very strong on this. One of the things that you should not forget is thousands and even tens of thousands of jobs in the private sector are connected to transit. People producing the seats in the buses, people producing the buses themselves, people doing all sorts of jobs that's in manufacturing that ends up in transit. There are over 6,700 organizations providing public transportation, and public transportation saves $1 billion of gas and reduces carbon emissions by 55%. I think even with this administration, that would not be doing that is not a controversial or negative thing. As Bev indicated, we really work very much on the workforce side. We work very closely with ATU and the other unions in transit, particularly, and we do a lot of our work on a joint labor management basis. So we're going to take a look specifically at some workforce opportunities here. So you'll see here the median age for workers in selected sectors. I'm going to take your attention to the green line on the bottom. National total employed is everybody in the economy. And if you take a look at the overall workforce, a little over 42 years old, 42.2 is the median age. That means half the people are above that, half the people are above it for the overall economy. You go up to the top and take a look at bus service and urban transit. And again, the median age is 51.8. That's a pretty big gap. And you take a look at the other transportation sectors, and they're all above that 42.2, but bus and urban transit service is above it by a lot. That has a lot of implications for what happens to your workforce, because if you have people who are that old, they're getting close to retirement age, particularly in an industry where you still have pensions, and people can qualify for retirement well before they're 65, depending on when they started. 30 years in, quite typically people are eligible for retirement. And if you're 51 years old and started in your early 20s, you're already there or getting close. Here is a somewhat different look at the same picture, and this is the total number of people employed, and on the bottom the number of job openings expected in the next 10 years. Bus, truck, and diesel engine specialists includes a lot of people outside of transit, but it's the closest approximation we have of people working as mechanics in transit. So the numbers here are much bigger than you'd see in transit, but it's reflective of the overall trend here. And you can see there are 250,000 jobs expected in the next 10 years. That's a lot of jobs. Bus transit, bus drivers, transit inner city. Again, about 250,000 jobs expected in the next 10 years. Police, fire, dispatchers, ambulance, reservation ticket takers. You can see there are just a lot of jobs here generally. Okay, keep going. Okay, so if we can see there's some demand for jobs there, but why would you want to consider working in public transportation? Let's take a look at some of that. So there's a whole world of careers inside transit. You can see this graphic of a bus, and there are people who are driving the bus. There are people who are fixing the bus. There are people fueling the bus. You also have lawyers, financial people, human resources people, general managers, people running the facilities, engineers, marketing, communications. Within transit, almost anything you want to do, there's a job there for it. So you'll run across a lot of people in the course of your IR experience. You'll end up talking to some of the people who actually do these jobs. Okay. And then there's the opportunity to work with new technologies. I think this is going to work. I hope it does. Yeah, here it is. So this is one of Bev's favorite. So you've got a bus there, and you can see you've got little things happening here: fluorescent lighting, diodes, destination signs, electronic fare box, and it just keeps going. Electronically controlled wheelchair ramps, electronic radio communication, electronic hub odometer, passenger request systems, GPS location, automated fare collection, LED lighting, camera and surveillance system. You'll be talking about that a lot with safety and automated next stop annunciators, multiplexing, electronically controlled doors, and it keeps going. And I'll not read off all of these. Wi-Fi access, USB.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see
I have to say this. So when somebody says, "Oh, it's just a bus," okay, I'm saying, yeah, it's just like this, like this, it's all this technology. It's like a rolling van of technology. It's unbelievable, and it just keeps on coming. So keep going.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of innovation. No pun intended. You know what I'm saying?
And the last two that came up there, electronic regenerative braking, which is tied to the hybrid systems and also to the newer electric systems, and fully electric vehicles. It's a lot. So and obviously this is challenging work, but you're not going to be bored. It's very interesting work. It's very interesting and challenging things to be paying attention to. You get good wages and benefits. Bev and I were joking about this in a previous iteration of IA, which I think goes back all the way to Chicago. There was a young woman who she had really good mechanical skills, and she'd worked for Jiffy Lube and had done some lower end jobs and that kind of stuff. And she made a presentation, and she had been able to get a job at United Parcel Service, and she was in a union. The machinists represent mechanics there, International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. And she said, I get paid for not working. So it was a new concept to her that you had paid vacation time, you had paid sick leave, you had all sorts of paid holidays, which you didn't have in some of these lower end jobs. Transit has all that and more. You get health insurance, life insurance. The guaranteed pensions are a rarity in this economy right now, but it's a real strong point in transit. You work in transit, and you've got when you retire, you're going to be getting something that's not a 401k, not something you had to pay into, but is part of your job. You're getting that. And the wages are very competitive. So there's a lot to consider there. Opportunities to advance. So this is a sample career pathway in a large agency. You can see at the bottom people, track workers, train operators, conductors, electrical helpers, and they can move up. And I won't read the whole chart to you, but you can see it, that there are chances to move up. And there are a lot of people in the industry who've gone through this progression. You'll meet some of them. Mike Hirsch comes to mind, who's the general manager at AC Transit, which we've talked a lot about here. And Mike was a mechanic in the Air Force, came out of the Air Force looking for a job. He got a job in transit working as a mechanic and kept moving up. Very smart guy, knew what he was doing, and was chief operating officer at Valley Transit and moved up to become general manager at AC Transit in Oakland.
And Jack, I have to introduce here. Okay, so we got that side of it. Now, I started as what would be a glorified intern. I was a fellow, okay, in 1976, and before Houston Metro was even a Houston Metro. So I went to do a 18-month kind of like I said, glorified internship. Okay, I'm saying, and 40 years later, 9 transit systems and 4 times as CEO. Okay,
Right.
so I'm just saying the what you can do.
Right.
If you'd asked me that I would have been in, I would have told you. I never, and I used buses as a kid. I never, and a train. I was Cleveland. It never translated to me that was a career. Okay, keep on going, Jack.
And another example like that, Inez, who now works as vice president of one of the biggest consulting firms in the industry. She was general manager in Indianapolis. She used to be chief operating officer of Valley Transit Authority. And I'm pretty sure she started answering the phone for customer relations.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of opportunities here. And you can see in smaller agencies,
let me find out who it would be.
Smaller,
my
you don't have as many layers.
Excuse me, could someone mute? Okay.
Ask who, so we can know who to contact after or whatever.
I'm sorry, somebody needs to mute. Okay.
Down and dirty.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's Jose Dakshar. If you could,
Okay.
I think you'd have to hit the mute button on him because he's a host right now.
It's like, oh, let me talk to.
If you hover over his name. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks.
Good. Okay. Gotcha. Okay.
But it's a smaller. It's not as complex a career path as the smaller agencies, but people absolutely move up from being drivers to being general managers. I mean, it happens, and in some of the agencies, you're a driver, you're a general manager, and you're still driving. I mean, it's just the reality of the way this industry works sometimes. But there is a lot of mobility, and it's okay. And this is on the tech level, same thing. And then there are union career ladders. We talked about Rich a little bit. ATU has done great work on this, and John Coster himself is an example of this. That he was an active union member and I believe started as a bus cleaner and cleaning subway cars in Newark, and learned different skills. Became a bus technician, learned signals, learned a couple of things, became very adept in a lot of the skilled occupations. He became a local, I'm sure he became an executive board member first, became local union president, head of the New Jersey State Council, moved on to the ATU International staff, and now he's the international president. Rich, we talked about before, was a bus driver, became a mentor, very creatively used the skills there, try to figure out how to do some really amazing things in terms of working with community college, building a pipeline into the community, thinking very systematically along with his management counterparts about how we reach effectively the community, how we get people who we might have otherwise passed over and give them a real opportunity. And he's now he's moved up from being the coordinator at his location on mentoring to helping people all over North America develop these programs. And it's a great example. And John Costa has done fantastic work in helping to build that that whole area of work within ATU. And we mentioned this before. It's an opportunity to serve and connect a community. A little story, and the Canadians can be very good on this. Fairly early in my career here at the Transportation Learning Center, we met with some people in Vancouver, British Columbia, and Canada has a much more integrated system for how you deal with workforce than the United States does, and they do a lot of things better. And we met with some people who were both in transportation and workforce. And they told the story that somebody had come to them and said, you need to hire bus drivers. We get a great opportunity for you. We just laid off all these people who are long haul truckers. And they said, not the right people. That if you're hiring, if you're looking for people, we can teach somebody how to get a commercial driver's license. We can teach somebody how to move a bus around, but we can't teach people how to have an attitude towards working with other people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you've derived satisfaction for a long time in your career out of driving hundreds of miles alone, you're probably not going to be the right person to be a bus driver. So that's the kind of insight that is important to think about this in terms of careers. If you really want to deal with people, that it's a challenge. It's a great challenge, which Rich can tell you, and he can tell you about how some of the ways they dealt with people adapting to that challenge. But it's absolutely a job where you will enjoy the opportunity to deal with people, and you are serving a community. And there's a lot of value in that. It's meaningful work, and that's the end of my presentation. Oh, and one thing I meant to cover when I was talking about all those changes in the bus. Bev mentioned both Operator Assault and Bus of the Future, and there will be a future session on that. I know Toronto Transit Commission is going to be presenting on that. I'm hoping that ATU can free up Andrew Filatico, who's the International Safety Director and used to be the Safety Director for Local 113 in Toronto, and he's still up in Toronto. They have been doing just amazing work in general on the innovations on bus, dealing with the new technologies and how you train people and everything else. But most importantly, and I think they're doing the best work in North America on this, coming up with designs and training people around the designs to keep people safe while they're driving the buses. And they have video, which I hope they can share, of a woman who's a bus driver, and a relatively small woman who just relates the story of getting beaten very badly at some point. And she's back driving now because she's secure in knowing that the bus she's driving keeps her safe. And it's just, I can't say enough good things about the work.
And I want to make a point here. Okay, we are going to talk about the increase in transit worker assaults. Okay, but I'm not. We're in because it's real. But what it is that we are unfortunately a microcosm of the communities and society within which we live. Okay, so this is not something that is the transit phenomenon. Okay, I don't care if you're talking about your Walgreens or whatever. We have seen within, I'll speak to our country, an increase in non-civil behavior. Okay, and I'm saying, and it if it's happening on your streets, unfortunately, and in communities, unfortunately, that does have an impact in terms of whether it's public transportation, whether it's your local business establishments, whether it's whatever. And you don't stop living because of that, but you have to also wind up understanding the reality and addressing it. So I do want to make that point. I don't want to leave people with this, like, oh, it's this. No. It's what's happening within, unfortunately, broader community, which we all are part of. So that's my little my little epitaph on that. Okay. So not Jack, thank you so much. Okay. If no one has like a burning question for Jack right now, I got a few little notes over here. Okay. Um, That's it, because I do want the whole thing of microtransit to come up a little bit as we go through, because this is a kind of one of those innovative areas that we're doing as a sector. It gives a great pleasure to turn it to Rich. And Rich, now you take it away.
Oh, and then, also, Jack, I don't know if you want to end your share screen so we can see Rich as well.
Yep.
Here
Thank
we
you
go.
very much.
Jack, thank you so much. This is really
Thank
great.
you, Jack. It's been amazing. You know what? I do have a presentation that I am going to share really quick, so that way you guys don't have to look at me the whole time. I don't know if you guys see it.
Yes, looks good.
We got you. That's it,
All
Rich.
right. Well, thank you, Dr. Beverly Scott and the IA team. You know, the work you're doing is truly is inspiring and impactful. You know, I'm honored to be a part of this. Isaiah, you know, your story does resonate. And Jack, you know, what a great introduction into the careers into transit and, you know, amazing work on gathering that data. That's a lot of data, right? And one thing that's certain is there's a need for transit workers, obviously. But the question we should be asking right now is, you know, is this the right career for you, right? And I think that's where worker voice and the frontline worker is important in giving, you know, our audience, you know, the youth, the perspective of what the benefits are to them, right? Because we always talk about, you know, what we offer, but what's important to them, right? Including your frontline workers are early on, you know, for us at Golden Gate, that meant including us in the recruiting process, right? In the job fairs, you know, to be able to answer any job specific questions. And for those who are, you know, kind of wondering, you know, if you're an agency or an organization, why is that important? That helps eliminate a lot of the uncertainty or questions that you're going to face as you know, as you go through training. You know, I don't want to take up too much of our time. I'd like to be able to answer any questions the audience may have at the end. So I'll give you a little bit of background of who I am, what we do, and more importantly, the role the worker voice plays into all of this. I want to point out that because of these programs, the ones, you know, who support it, I am a product of worker voice. I come from the front line and I've gone through the paces, and I want to be able to give back. Once again, you know, my name is Rich Diaz. I'm one of the ATU International Workforce Development Coordinators. I work alongside our director, Jermaine Gibson. Let me go back. Alongside our director, Jermaine Gibson, with the leadership and support of our ATU International President, John Costa, along with our partners, we're here to help develop apprenticeship, pre-apprenticeship, and mentorship programs in the transit industry. And like I said, because of these programs, not only am I able to share my story and experiences, but also the experiences and lessons learned from others in the industry, you know, ranging from coach operators, maintainers, mechanics, management, and even high school and college students. And one of the reoccurring themes I hear all the time is that I wish I would have joined transit sooner, right? Including myself. That's what I, you know, told myself as I continued on this career. And why is that, you may ask, right? And it's because transit has a culture of seniority. That means the sooner you get in, the sooner you're able to reap the rewards of, and I don't want to put it this way, but the first come, first serve model, right? As an operator, that meant there was no corporate ladder for us to really fight over, you know. All I had to do was, number one, stay healthy. Number two, do my job. And that meant that I was moving up in transit as an operator. And there's nothing wrong with having a fulfilling career as a coach operator. But one of the things I didn't understand or know at the time was the vast opportunities that were available in transit, like being a part of your local union or getting into supervision, dispatching, mentoring, and the role that I currently have at the International. Like Jack, like your last screen, the bus isn't just a bus. There's so many avenues and aspects into the transit career. And getting your foot in the door is the first step. Well, Rich, how would I have known about these opportunities, right? Dr. Batman Jack, it's the same question.
Same thing.
Same questions, right? And that's what we're here for, right? That's where, for you, those of you in the audience, whether you're leading a union, agency, or organization, we have to do a better job at promoting and giving exposure to these careers, especially to those who are in attendance today, our youth, right? And do it in a way that we can connect with the current youth, meaning, we need to speak their language. Once again, thank you, Aya, for taking the initiative in this department. And we'll circle back on how we can do that, like I said, with the programs that, I mentioned earlier. And for the youth who are in the audience, all I can say is that, yes, I've been in your shoes. Prior to coming to Transit, I was at my local community college trying to figure out what I wanted to do in life. I was like a little kid again. All the possibilities were endless. But to be honest, it was overwhelming, right? For us in the Bay Area, being a bus operator, it's not the glamorous job. For us, it was tech, right? But one thing that I can say is that Transit has provided for me a career that has been stable, consistent, has offered competitive pay and great benefits. And more importantly, provided my family with opportunities to grow and navigate life. And that's why I'm here, to give back and tell others of the career in Transit and what's done for me, and that it can do the same for you.
Yeah.
And if none of this resonates with you, that's because it didn't resonate with me in the beginning either. While we can't address all the questions that you may have right now, I encourage you to reach out to an organization that can connect you with someone who's knowledgeable or partners with transit agencies. So, fast forward, prior to coming out to ATU International, I started my career in transit with ATU Local 1575 and Golden Gate Transit. Initially as a coach operator, like Jack said, eventually joining and leading the mentor program, and finally as an apprenticeship coordinator. And never did I imagine, 13 years ago, I'd be doing what I'm doing right now. We've taken the model from Local 265 VTA with their JWI program, which is union-led and worker-centered, and implemented it at Golden Gate. With the help of California Transit Works, we're able to elevate our program and start a pre-apprenticeship program. And this is where we're going to tie all of this in. The impacts of our mentor program gives the mentors or the frontline workers the ability to make a difference at the local level. It supports new and incoming operators and maintenance workers navigate a career in transit, and not just on the technical aspect, but the soft skills, right? The work-life balance. How do we deal with those passengers who are unruly? For those, like I said, especially for the youth coming in, you're able to find someone that you can confide in, that is vetted, experienced, and it really does help with retention. What a better way to hear from someone than those who have already been in your situation, right? Finding someone you can trust is always a challenge, but having a formalized mentor program with vetted mentor takes away a lot of those challenges right off the bat. Our mentor program really sets the foundation for apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. Moving on to apprenticeship, apprenticeship programs can open up opportunities if someone, should decide to do so. At Golden Gate, because we're registered with the state and work with local community colleges, we can register our students with the junior college and award them 12 college units upon completing apprenticeship, a value that's often overlooked, right? That's 1/3 of a way to an AA degree, which in turn can be applied to advance your career in transit. And often the local agencies or the local unions and or agencies offer tuition reimbursement. In the maintenance space, it's create career paths or ladders. If my brother Alicio was here, he'd share his story from, cleaning coaches to becoming a mechanic to coming on to the international, where he's had an opportunity to be at the White House, right? He has an amazing story, and there are many more other stories that are like that. And unfortunately, we just don't have the time to share them. But that's the careers in transit have been, like you said, Jack, fulfilling. And once again, we use our mentors, our frontline workers as subject matter experts and journey level professionals for not only the training, but for the on-the-job portion, meaning there's someone there that will help guide you from beginning to end. Finally, our pre-apprenticeship programs have been very valuable in sharing the opportunities that the careers in transit offers, right? Especially for those who come from disadvantaged or marginalized communities, and more importantly, like I said, for those on the call, our youth. It really gives them a chance to see how this career can really impact and benefit their lives before they're fully committing into apprenticeship. And it goes both ways for the agencies to say, you know what, we can it's almost like an extended interview process to see if this is worth, if this relationship is going to work with this student. And if you want to reach out to the youth, working with the community college is a great way to reach that demographic, as well as working with your community-based organizations. You have to be intentional and aware of the barriers and challenges that the youth and students may face. For example, driving experience. At Golden Gate Transit, as a direct hire, you needed 7 years of driving experience. But through pre-apprenticeship, we've been able to lower that minimum to 3 years, and are now seeing more and more youth through our doors. Another one is the high school diploma. If you don't have a high school diploma or a U.S. equivalent, we offer an alternative aptitude test where you don't have to go out and spend years trying to get your GED or a HiSET test. Not everyone thrives in a school setting, but that doesn't mean they can't thrive in the transit industry. And I can go on and on about the benefits of pre-apprenticeship. I really do love everything that we've done. But I've already taken up too much of our time. So really, to cap this off, I encourage our audience, whether you're a student, union, agency, organization, to get involved and use the resources that are already available to you right now. The frontline workers, and listen to what they have to say, because they're doing the work and know what's current. Thank you.
Rich, thank you so much. I mean, there are just so many things that have come out, but I just love this, okay? Because one of the other things that you're seeing is that you're in transportation, but what you also heard was a major union share with you. They're a whole you at the agency, but you got this industry there, and there is a whole world. I tell folks the same thing about community-based and philanthropy. Okay, I'm saying there is a whole world of organized labor that has, and I'm talking about at the, as you say, international level, where you can also make some decisions as you're thinking, and I want to emphasize a note that Rich said: intentionality is that you get exposed to things you wouldn't normally have been exposed to, and you start saying to yourself, I didn't know about that. I didn't know about that. I didn't even know that there was such a, and how that works. And it's almost like a lattice, it's going to be like a lattice. So it just opens up different opportunities. And on this point of intentionality, if there's one thing that we want you to do and understand, plans are made. That's what a plan is. It changes, okay? It modifies, okay? But you want to try to have a foundation, a guidebook, and a plan for your personal and professional development. And think about it. Because if you don't, let me tell you, you don't want to be in the situation, and there will always be opportunities, and you will change. Plans are made to be adjusted, okay? But stuff will happen to you, and instead of you having some foot at the table to say, what would I want to wind up happening to me? Okay, where do I want to point myself? So I just say that some of the best time that you can give yourself is the time to really think through yourself, who you are as a person, what really is challenging and exciting and interesting to you, and what are your values, and what do you want to do with your life and in your life? What's important to you? Okay, and I'm saying, and then to try to align. I'm gonna come and finish with this whole epistle, and then try to align what you choose to do in life with what gives you pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
What is your passion? What is it that excites you? What is it that is interesting? We know everything's not going to be ha ha he he. And so, but what makes you have energy in it? What's draining? Okay. And I often laugh and tell people, they say, well, you've been in this stuff all these years. And I laugh and I tell them, I say, that's true. I said, but and the question is, why did I stay? And I don't think you've been hearing the same theme across this thing. I do love all the big things that move, But I can honestly say that I have been blessed to be in the business of community building for 45 years in communities big and small all over this country. And it wasn't like Bev went in and did it. Okay. What I was able to do was to wind up supporting what communities were saying that they wanted to have done. If it was a streetcar in Atlanta, if it was 4 commuter rail stations in Boston, if it was whatever, is to be a transit stop that some senior citizens were begging for in Rhode Island on or whatever. Big and little things, sidewalks, streetscapes and stuff, that you can make a difference in people's lives. Okay. And if that's what turns you on, I can tell you, you can't play we got bus buddies, train buddies, we got everything. You can't ask for if that empathy and that wanting to be a part of a community and help and do meaningful work, the senior that needs to get to the center, the kid that's trying to go to school, the mother that's trying to go to work, the whatever. If those are the see economic development wind up coming to communities that didn't have it before because now they've got that transit, they've got a bus that does things for. If those are the kinds of things that excite you and ring your bell. And let's don't forget that we are, regardless, I don't care what, we are the biggest emitter, our sector, of greenhouse gas emissions. So all this technology and changing and things that we're trying to do to impact this overall environment in a much more positive way. I tell people, we don't have to make up being a lean green machine. That's what we do. Okay, you know what I'm saying? And so if those are the kinds of things that are of interest to you, then I would submit to you that I don't think that there's a little biased here, but there are not many better places that you can than you can work. So anyway, so I'm the one that brings, I'm not the Grim Reaper, but then I'm gonna end up with some additional food for thought. But it's exciting. It's a lot. The transportation sector is our world. Okay, is just experiencing a lot of change. We saw a lot of it that came, the pandemic. Yes, the pandemic accelerated a lot of stuff. Okay. But quite candidly, things like greenhouse gas emissions and all that, they've been around. The fact that we have an aging workforce, we've known that for 20 some years. Okay. So the advent, as Jack was showing, the bus of all the new things, that now what always I get the marvel from is that how many there were 10 to get started with maybe, and how they've just grown. But this is like over a 15-20 year period of time. It's not just the electrification transformation. This stuff has been happening in terms of the introduction and deployment of new technologies in our sector for the better part of 20 plus years. Okay. It's at some scale. Okay. And now, of course, it's the world is, if you ever thought you had an inoculation for life, you don't. Okay. Because we're going to all be continuously changing. So the transportation sector is experiencing the same thing that's happening for everybody, major internal and external changes. Okay. And the pandemic certainly did. Whoever would have thought that we could have been as remote, as hybrid, as whatever you want to say, as we have now become, and figured it, and quite candidly figured it out. Adversity will make you have to figure things out quickly. And I think was an eye opener to a lot of folks who thought that, if people work at home, they won't work and all that kind of stuff like that. I think there's no au contraire. But then the other thing to remember too is that, all things can't be done remotely. Okay. And that is really a reality for much of what happens on our front line. It's not that there is not a lot that can be done, but there are not just our front line, just like, nurses and doctors and stuff, like nurses and doctors and surgery rooms and stuff like that. I mean, there's a lot of things that you just can't say, oh, nobody's trying to be mean about it. But in order for those activities to take place, really requires that people will in fact have to be in presence. Okay. Rapid transformation that's taking place in, just once again, all around us. And this very much, and we have one of the sessions that's going to be talking about the digital divide. Okay. And I'm saying, and the whole thing in terms of internet and the importance of quality internet services and affordability and stuff. But the world is changing. Okay, the world is just changing. I mean, telemedicine, education, how we don't even look at stores, retail centers. Now, some of that had already begun before the pandemic, but now, I mean, I'm gonna tell you something I did. I timed myself in the CVS to see how long, just the whole thing in terms of things aren't there like they used to be. Like you go places and it used to be like you could shop around and every so much stuff is done online. So what does that do for us as a transportation sector? Because we don't exist by ourselves. Okay, I'm saying is that there is a lot of uncertainty, but more and more we're appreciating the fact that there are linkages and interdependencies that we have with other sectors. And so if I could tell you anything that you want to put in your personal and professional development book, is that there's no silos. And so the more that you not only know what's happening in your sector, but begin to see those linkages that are happening with the energy sector, the housing sector, the public health sector, all that, and beginning to think bigger and do bigger, because you can't. You're gonna have to sit at the table with everybody. Okay, what I'm saying. And so when you start talking about your personal and professional development, thinking about how you begin to knit that and what does that mean is what I would just say a placeholder, because you want to do that. Okay. Keep moving on. Okay.
For sure.
Take us to the next one. So there are no silos, linkages are everywhere. Let me give you an example in transportation. I should never forget this one. Okay. When Puerto Rico got their big the big hurricane that hit down there, probably 8 years ago now. Because I called down there because we normally within our sector, and of course it's different when you have islands like NASA and all that. But I called I was just what can we do? Because the whole notion of sending buses and train, all that kind of stuff like that was difficult. But I called down the people with Trent Urbano to say, what could we do to help? Because I didn't want to go start something. I wanted to be able to just help with it. Okay, whatever was going on. So the folks that ran Trent Urbano, they said, Bev, I said, well, how's it looking? Whatever. And because our FTA administrator in Region 4 said, been there for years, said, I'm not trying to say that I've seen a lot at that point, 20 some years, but this is one of the worst ones that I've seen. So I'm talking to people at Trent Urbano. They said, Bev, let me tell you something. Technically speaking, we could have brought Trent Urbano up in about 10 days. Now, we could not fix the bridges. We couldn't do this, but what we could do, we could technically have said we could have, but it didn't matter because power wasn't up, communications wasn't working. Okay. And so the fact that we could have said, what could transit have done? Couldn't do nothing. Okay.
Mhm.
Because until the rest of the other sectors could come. And so this is what we're seeing with this whole thing of linkages. And then on top of that, what's been happening is because for what we've considered normals to be for the last 50, 60 years, that whole look at normal has changed dramatically. Okay. And all you have to do is look at FEMA, what they call the FEMA maps, okay, that you can look at to see how many incidents have we had, whether it's a storm, a mudslide, or fires, or whatever, and disasters, okay. And these are increasingly natural disasters. When I was growing up, everybody was thinking about when was somebody gonna come and bomb you, okay? But now these are largely natural disasters. Let me leave this with you. The number, the intensity, and the duration have changed dramatically. Okay. And that is fact. Okay. So and what we've seen because of that is that the cascading impact of all of that happening means that we really don't operate in a silo. So linkages are everywhere. Public behavior and expectations, talked about it a little bit already. I want to go press my button and I want to come into my door, or I want to do da. So we are a creature of, when we talk about internal, external changes, we need to be able to respond to and support what the public is saying that they want to do and how they want to roll. Okay. And what their expectation is. And like we used to laugh about real-time information and say, like, you will, first thing, you better not run hot, but I sure don't want you to come early. Okay, so that used to be like in the old days, way people would talk about things. Now, so you got to, so how do you, I'm still annoyed with you, but I, at least if you can give me some real time information and make sure that I know what you're going to do and that's what you're going to do it, I have an expectation of that. When I started out in this business 45 years ago, that was no expectation. It really wasn't. It was an expectation you wouldn't run, that you try to run on time. You would never be early. But the notion that I would be sitting there thinking about, hey, where are you? I should be able to look and see. That wasn't something that was in the experience because we weren't ready. That's public expectation. Okay, and I'm saying growing inequality and unrest about that, big problems. Okay, the climate change, it exactly what I said. You can look at it. Nobody's making this up in terms of the number, the duration, and the intensity of these climatic things that are taking place, and they have the variety of whatever you get, you're getting more of it, and sometimes things that never happened in your area before are beginning to happen, which, like me, I'm down in Mobile, Alabama. I can tell you, in my front yard 2 months ago, I had 7.5 inches of snow. I am 73 years old. Not in my lifetime have I ever seen that happen. Okay, and I'm saying, and so it's not, and we're not the only ones. And so, what does all this have? Workforce and the workplace changes. The who's in the workforce, the demographic is changing tremendously in terms of the U.S. Where people, what, and how. Okay, so yes, remote, hybrid, all of the above. Okay. And that also speaks to what we have to think about in terms of the health and the welfare and the attractiveness of our careers. And then, of course, we got a lot of major disruptors, a lot of stuff taking place globally, but more importantly, when you think about things like cybersecurity and all of that, which goes along with this whole information highway and networks, if you will, every single one of what they call our OT and IT systems, operating systems, you don't even have to worry about whether you're being looked at. Okay. All of that area of cybersecurity, and that's another area, career. I tell people electrification and cyber, you can take it to the bank. Okay, and I'm saying, and that's another, those are and those are also careers that are embedded, deeply embedded in terms of in terms of the transportation sector. But so challenges, but also opportunities. Okay, take me on, Isaiah. Okay.
And we also do have about 15 minutes left, just so you know.
Okay, so I'm gonna go through. So what do we say at the big top level is that we have to elevate people planning into our business processes and how we think about everything. Okay, and I'm saying, because at the end of the day, I don't care how many machines that we have to think and we have to plan, and we really have to modernize how we approach the importance of people readiness. Okay. The other thing I'm going to show you in a minute is that we got to have a different DNA. If people ever thought that, I call it the inoculation for life, like, oh, I got a degree, I got my degree, and now I can just go ahead and kind of keep on for the rest of the 25, 30 years. It don't work that way. Okay. So we call it K to grade, that people are going, and we might as well get this as part of our DNA. We will all be working, learning. Anybody who, I say, you start getting stupid when you think you know everything. Okay, and I'm saying everyone there is a difference. Ignorance is a lack of experience and exposure. With the deployment of new technologies, we are going to have to think and act differently. And that means that you and me, all of us, have the where we work is a partnership, has responsibilities, but nobody has more responsibility. That goes back to that plan, your own personal plan. Okay. In terms of how am I going to make sure that I am tooled and suited up and continuously sharpening and adding things to my own personal toolkit that will help me to wind up being relevant. And that does not, and that's not all mean, and I want everybody to get every degree that you want to have, but that means upskilling, that means reskilling, that means 3-month programs, 6-month programs, certification programs, so that are absolutely relevant to what you need to do. Okay, you know what I'm saying? And we're gonna all be doing that in all different kinds of ways. So we need to get this stuff of blue collar and white collar and throw it away. Okay. If we gotta have a collar, let's call them all gray collars. Okay. I'm saying because these things that this gets to some of this image stuff that we've had. We got this big kind of thing, where you got to have this degree. And I mean, I have a doctorate. I want everybody to get whatever degree you want. My granddaughter's a pastry chef. Okay, you know what I'm saying? And that does not require a whatever. She loves it. She's great at it. I'm thrilled for her. Okay, you know what I'm saying? And my son-in-law yeah, I was so happy when he was talking about how much he wanted to do electrification and work on vehicles. I said, thank you, Jesus. Okay. So the world is really changing, and unfortunately for us in the U.S., we didn't mean anything badly, but we went so affluent in this degree. We really disassembled vocational and technical education over a 25, 30-year period. We understand, I think we really understand that was a mistake. And so we put a lot of work into it, but we have more to do. And the unfortunate part about it is that it left a public image that was, these are not default decisions. It isn't that, well, you didn't do whatever. It's not default jobs. These are intentional choices that people make around really, really wonderful careers. Okay. And they are not in any way second class or default. And unfortunately, being real about it, we've done this to ourselves, and we have to all work on elevating the image and the modernization of how we think and talk about not just public transportation, all these positions. So this is your list of, we know we have persistent diversity and inclusion issues. Attracting people and retaining them is critical. So we have to, and we really know we need to do as much as we can on that retention area. The image, and nothing works better than worker voice. You can talk till you're blue in the face. People who can actually express what they love about this work and everything, and who do it every day. Image, impact, and linkages. I heard a gentleman during the middle of the pandemic, and we asked him, he was up in Minnesota, how do you talk about these positions when you're talking to young people? Could have cried. Okay, you could have heard a pin drop, but I never heard anybody say. I said, well, how do you say it? He said, well, Dr. Scotty, when I go and talk to young people, he said, I tell them that we are the people that make normal happen. Everybody in that room with all them doggone degrees they had could have cried. Okay. Because to say it, that's what we do. Okay. And it don't get much better than that. So you can shape personal, community, societal outcomes. I told you about all the interdependencies, the portability. We used to think if you started in academia, you stayed in academia. If you were private sector, you were private sector. If you were public sector, you were public sector. You should look at the world as your oyster. You can be private sector, public sector, go to academia, do something with a philanthropic organization, and go back and repeat it again, Sam. Okay. And so think of the portability. You can do things in public transportation. You can do it in your local utility. You could start a business, and we haven't even gone off into all of that, but all of this new transitioning with electrification and stuff opens up tremendous opportunities for people to be able to actually be entrepreneurs, okay, and start your own businesses. And for all of us, that's why I love the apprenticeship programs and all the work like Rich was talking about, because if you talk to major employers, I don't care where the person got their degree. One of the biggest things they say is that people are coming out of colleges and stuff like that, and they are not job ready. They are not job ready. Didn't mean say they weren't smart, but they're not job ready. So the whole focus that we're putting on job readiness and knowledge transfer, which you've got to get by really dealing with people who are doing the work, is making a difference. Okay. And then we want to be competitive, and we got a lot of, we got workforce place challenges and change, a lot of change that needs to take place. Okay. Take me again, Isaiah, to the next one. So when you start talking about mobility, instead of just transportation, we say transportation, that really expands our sectors, what we call reach, relevance, and career opportunities. Okay, because you're not just talking about things. Okay, and I'm saying these are like big outcomes we want. We want to expand opportunity and access. We want to be resilient and sustainable. We want to expand access to opportunities. And that's the work when you look at it: jobs, education, health, medical, housing. Those are the kinds of things that what we do support. Okay, and I'm saying you're going to set that development up. You want people to be able to have 15 minutes to wind up being able, or 20 minutes to get to their travel shed, to get to where they need to go to work. Guess who's the ones that wind up working with you to make sure that that happens? Okay. And so that's how it knits together. So yeah, I'm gonna be at that housing table, and I'm gonna be at that public health table, and I'm gonna be at that table where that developer is talking about they getting ready to develop something. I'm gonna tell them I got a 40-foot bus and it's got a turning radius of X. And when you do that development, you better make sure that you do it so that I can get in and out. Okay. And come. So it's all of that integration that takes place that it really happens in this sector. Okay. And I'm saying, and opens up the opportunities for you to be in planning, for you to wind up being in engineering, you'd be in design, then you got to finance these things for finance. So it's a whole bunch of stuff going on that are, people told me, well, I want to be a doctor. I said, well, who do you think? What do you think? All these medical review officers we have now, some places like New York, I've worked, we had our own doctors and stuff, but everybody has contractors that work for them that are either, that are, whether it's PTSD, EAP services, all the random testing that we do. And so between us, or directly or indirectly, the contractors that we have that support our sector, yes, every kind of something that you have, we have doctors, we have nurses, we have physical therapists, we have all of that in one way or another are also connected directly or indirectly to our sector. So Jack and them showed you some, but just things that you could say to yourself, I didn't think about these kind of sustainable mobility transport careers. Oh, and now these are some digital. If another thing, if digital proficiency, you want to be as good as you can be, okay? Because when people talk about the jobs, AI and stuff, the ones that are going to be going away, let's be real about it, robotics and all that. And then on the other side of the table, but worry, but don't worry, but you should be on top of it. Well, what are the core competencies you have to have on this side for the ones that are going to replace? Every single one of them, not just digital literacy. We need to be digitally excellent. Okay. And so that's another reason why first, having affordability and having but then that critical thinking, because that's what these other positions are that are the replacement positions, so to speak, or the augmented positions are going to be looking for. So every time that you can, I struggle with it all the time. Oh my God, but I have to make myself stretch to try to be as digitally proficient as possible. And then marine health. I mean, we had young people in a program, they were shocked that the Port of LA hired scuba divers, that they were employees, okay, because that's not a lot of them, but they're concerned about the flora and the fauna. So yes, there's scuba divers that you can wind up having, or housing specialists. So these are just examples of some of the positions. Hydrologists, who would think? So the thinking we all want to leave you with is this: you own your career. You own it. Okay. And that's your food for thought. And so we're saying to you that the world is a lot greater complexity. There's a lot of interconnections and dependencies in there because we're not just by ourselves. Think multi-sectoral. Some of the same types of skills and skill sets that you have for transportation are in the water sector, are in the energy sector, are in the communication sector. Now, we want you in transportation, but if you want to go take a little ride on the high side someplace else, that's fine, and come on back. Okay, and I'm saying, and then we thinking about things that increasingly interdisciplinary, what's stackable, what are portable credentials that you can have, okay, so that you can be able to have that movement. We like you to think about a good job, but also think about intergenerational wealth creation and self-employment, having your own business. You'll never do well in anything that you don't know something about. And so still being able to get that foundation and then being someone who actually opens up a business. And then this is that whole thing we were talking about. It used to be that you thought I'm public. I wouldn't get out the public, private, academia, community-based, philanthropic, nonprofit. Those are all different aspects of the different markets that you can go into, okay, that once again can be absolutely supporting directly transportation and mobility. And then take me on out of this, Isaiah. So a little bit, just to give, our program is 18, we know you know this, but we're just wrapping up, 18 to 25 years old for this particular program is our target audience. We do some with what I call the adolescent youth at the high school and at the middle, and we're trying to work on middle school level too. But our annual program is really 18 to 25 years old. We kick off on January to July and do some more into August, but that's is basically the period of the program. We showed you the 12 and the three core elements. We have our career awareness virtual innovation challenge, and which USDOT, we're very pleased to say, has asked us to do a guide and toolkit on because they really like that virtual part of it. And then we do the youth industry critical conversations. I will say to you again, bus of the future, as well as a national forum on the whole area of what do you think that we could be doing differently, better, more of, to wind up helping to eliminate transit worker assaults. Okay. And then the last one I think we have up is, okay, we have an internship up now. It's the 2025 Community Builder Internship. We do it virtually, we do it hybrid, and we're very honored that one of our founding board members was Dr. Juanita Jones Abernathy. She was one of the original four of the modern civil rights movement in the United States. She was married to Reverend Abernathy, and I was very honored, and she was just an icon in and of herself. Okay, and I was very honored that she was on our board of directors at MARTA during the 5 years that I was there, and she was one of our founding board members. And so she was always about public service, always about being on the front line, and actually helped to shape a lot of we've always deeply had young people talking about their experiences, chronicling what can we do different, being in their community. And so the virtual challenge for us is part of that. It's problem solving. And we do the community builder internships in her name. So they're out now. Just scan the code. They're up and it's on a rolling. Okay. And so please share. If we have the application, they get all the information. We have a range of $17 to $27.50. We require that they be 18 to 25 years of age. They do not have to have we respect both learned and lived experience. Okay. And the chunks on the internship can be as low as 4 months, but as high as go through almost a year. Depends on the project and what we're doing at the time. And we really ask you to push them out so they can get their applications in and we can make our decisions. Okay. So thank you. Okay. Is there anyone that what's in the chat that I need to make sure we get directed, Isaiah? Okay.
There was one message that someone said, it was in regards to Jack. He was showing the slide about like the different kinds of careers that were involved with transit, and someone said, I would never connect lawyers with buses, LOL. So I thought that was a nice point. We did get two questions. One
Okay.
was for Jack and one was for Rich. So I could go with Jack first since we're already on that topic.
Okay.
They had asked, with the uncertainty of what the economy and future looks like, what does job security look like in the transportation industry? Oh, you're also on mute right now. I'm sorry.
That's a very good question. And to some extent, the answer is who knows? But that's true not just in transportation, that's true for a lot of people right now, including people who thought they were in very secure positions. I will say that if you think back just a few years to the pandemic, we did a lot of talk then about essential workers. And if you kept drilling down, the most essential of essential workers were transit workers, because there are people who had to get to those hospitals. We counted on people to be there stocking the shelves in grocery stores and checking you out in grocery stores. People had to get there. And people got there in buses. And
38%.
Yeah. That's how things ran. And whatever happens, there are definitely going to be some changes in the economy. Yeah, Yogi Berra's old thing about never prophesy, especially about the future. But you don't know what's really going to happen. But we do know that the services that are being provided are essential, and in one form or another, they're going to be there.
Right. And then Rich, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, no, I was gonna add to that. I like I said, I've only been in transit for the last 13 years, but historically and from hearing, like I said, hearing from other operators, especially senior operators, and as I mentioned earlier, transit has been the one career that's been really stable, consistent, right? Even with the downturn, like I said, of the economy in 2009, with the dot-com boom, right? And in the pandemic, right? We were also working then. Like I said, hopefully, like I said, we can't predict the future, but historically, transit has been very consistent on that level.
Right. And I think I would just add once again the same thing. Don't have a crystal ball, but just even looking at what I've been seeing coming out for different areas and stuff. We're gonna come back again on triple line under essential employees. Okay, that there have been specific references as stuff has been happening with Doge and all of that, but where essential employees, there is a looking at that those not be severely impacted, and I mean in the general kind of sense. So that whole notion, like Jack and Rich are saying, of essential workers. And literally on that piece there, when the pandemic, and you can't get much more, how much change can you take, okay, than that? The work that was done, I think it was 38% of the people who still needed to do things, okay, were depending upon public transportation in order to be able to make that happen. So, I mean, once again, we don't have crystal balls, but I've been around 45 years, and there's ups and downs, but we usually do pretty well, pretty
Cool.
steady. Mhm.
And yeah, the last question that we received, it was for Rich. They said, I've been watching the new season of Severance, and I've been thinking a lot about what my work-life balance would look like when I enter this industry. As a fellow young person, can you speak on your experience of what your work-life balance has been working in the industry? And I guess that could also go for Jack and Dr. Scott as well, but it was mainly for Rich.
Yeah, no, I would definitely, when it comes to work-life balance, that's something that we do and are really transparent about. Transit is not a 9 to 5 job, right? The hours vary, vary really well, and that's where transparency really does matter. The great part is, and as I mentioned earlier, is it's all based on seniority. So the longer you can stay, the more opportunities, or let's just say better schedules you'll have. I know there's a turn in like Dr. Scott said, and people wanted to spend more time at home, right? And having that work-life balance. Initially, just like in any job, you do have to work, what shifts are available. And that means it may be nights, it may be, early mornings. But for me, I was able to make that work in terms of, finding the positives in that schedule. I think that's the most important part is that mindset and really growing to understand that there is the light at the end of the tunnel, right? And not just saying, you know what, I want, and that's what we're saying more and more now. I want Saturday, Sunday off. I want the highest paying run. I want the most breaks. And fortunately and unfortunately, with it being seniority based, that's something that's just earned, right? Typically, in most industries, sometimes that's something you have to fight for, right? It's something that you have to prove, right? And working your way through the ranks. And as I mentioned earlier, just being able to manage that, manage, surviving the first, year or a couple years, and really understanding that, what, when, the longer I stay, the better it gets. And like I said, making the best of your situation at the moment. I'm a big advocate for, a growth mindset, and something that we do teach during pre-apprenticeship. But really, is wrapping your head around, knowing that things can get better as long as you're willing to work towards it.
Jack, you got anything on that?
A lot, but I'll pass.
Okay, well, I'm gonna say one little thing, and that is no question, exactly everything Rich said. But also, it's a sector that we listen, okay, and so young people have, there's no question about, particularly young people, the work-life balance. But that's where places like the TWC, the International Transportation Learning Center, there are innovations in scheduling, okay, like roster that management and labor are working through in pilot programs, different places. Like, once again, it's not taken, it's seniority is at the foundation. It is that, okay? But people are also taking a look to say, well, are there ways that we could, change? Okay, we could modernize. Let's put it that way. We could modernize that. You know what? The world won't come to an end if we do 4 this or 3 this or whatever. And not to try to get in, but folks are not just, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's
I
innovation.
will jump in on because
Yeah.
the example you're talking about, ATU International, Local 1070, and Indigo worked very hard over a period of a couple of years, and they had regular negotiations, but they also had focus groups
Yeah.
that included very senior people and much less senior people, sort of
Yeah.
talking about what's desirable, what's going to work for shifts and that kind of thing.
For shifts.
And
Yeah.
they came up, talk about innovation. They came up with something where everybody works 4-day, 10-hour shifts.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
that means everybody gets an additional day off for the weekend. People who want to work overtime have a chance to work overtime without, they can still get a weekend and get overtime in. And seniority people, more senior people still get to choose first, but it's evened out some of the problems on that. And I want to add also in work-life balance, one of the things that's an enormous challenge, not just in transit, but every place, and becoming increasingly problematic, is childcare is just out of control.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there are agencies and locations starting to think about how do we deal with that. And
Right. Right.
that's a
Right.
very important part of how people
Yeah.
can make life work.
Right. And recognizing that there's no cookie cutter. Okay. At the end of the day, you can have
Right.
pilots that work and they come out well
Right.
in this setting. It may not work as well because of the number of equipment, the range of the services that have to be provided, but the fact that everybody is really working together, because we do appreciate the fact that
Yep.
the workforce is changing and the environment is changing, and we want to
Yep.
we want to be
Yep.
competitive.
And stealing Rich's thunder for a minute on worker
Oh, go
voice.
ahead, Rich. Go,
What
go on in.
one of the things about Indigo and the way it worked there, and this is something Shinga, my colleague's deputy director here, plays up in a big way, is they kept at it in terms of talking about how this is going to work, and the way they kept at it, because scheduling is just inherently a very complex thing to pull together. They used artificial intelligence to keep trying to come up with differences in the schedule, and the AI was responding to those focus groups, which consisted of workers saying, "This is going to work for me. That's not going to work for me." So it was
Okay.
interesting.
That's interesting. Yeah. So I mean, it's we're. I mean, it is. I mean, we're all working on it together, so it's all good. That's it. So I am going to. We're 7 minutes over, actually. Okay. I'm gonna just thank everyone. Jack, you've been great. Rich, you've been great. Shandace, we gave you I see you over there. We gave you an out. You were smiling through parts of it. You say, "Oh my goodness." And please, everybody, make sure that you link, because people are getting their youth and they'll be all set up by the middle of April. Make sure that all of these are there, because this is also what we have for the career awareness trivia that we do on, in fact, it'll be the night of July the 18th. Okay, so everybody will be you know, were they binging or whatever? Okay, I'm saying when we go for trivia night, everything is game. Okay. So everybody take care and thank you so much. And we'll look forward to seeing you. We'll look forward to seeing you next week. The next week's session is Dr. Jamal Scobie, and he is with the Transportation Research Board. And they come out every year with a big report on what are the critical issues that are facing the industry in the transportation sector. And so we're setting that up, and he's going to do a 1 hour on that. And then the next one is going to be in fact, Jose and then we're on, it's going to be Mighty LA Metro is going to talk about innovation. Okay, you know what I'm saying? So their Office of Innovation and Sustainability, I think they're going to be up on the second. Okay. And so we're all with pins and needles, okay, getting everybody set up for Innovation Central. Okay. So take care so much and very appreciative of the attendance today. Thank you. Take
Thank you.
care.
Jack.
Rich, Jack,
Appreciate it.
thank you so
Thank you.
much.
You.
Bye-bye.
Rich.
Thank
Take care,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.